But we do start in Detroit, where felony charges have been filed against State Senator Virgil Smith Jr. He is out on bond after a shooting involving his ex-wife early Sunday morning. According to police, Smith got into an altercation with his ex-wife when she went to his Detroit home and found him with another woman. Meanwhile, the senator has been removed from committees and relieved of his caucus duties in the legislature. But the question now is whether Smith's alleged behavior constitutes removal from his job. And that is where we begin our discussion with our MiWeek contributors, Nolan Finley of the Detroit News and Stephen Henderson of the Detroit Free Press. I'm having a tough time talking today, but I promise it's going to get a little bit better. All right, so guys, when I opened up the paper and I saw this happen, I went, are you kidding me? And reportedly, Smith said to police, this is the stupidest thing I've ever done. Nolan?
Well, there's no trouble like woman trouble, is there? I mean,
no one knows about that.
Yeah, but it doesn't constitute. I mean, again, there's a lot wrong with this, but I'm going to let you continue your statement.
Well,
I'm not sure I should, but go ahead.
You know, he obviously went off his nut, and you know, he ended up with two women in the house at once, and that's a recipe for trouble. And you know, this guy who has voted against every gun rights bill in the legislature since he's been in there turns out to have a rifle in his closet and started shooting it off. It was the stupidest thing, probably. If he's done anything stupider than that, it'd be interesting to hear about.
Now, this is all allegedly. He's just been charged. He hasn't been convicted. But, Stephen, when you see this as another instance of politicians behaving badly?
Well, here, spectacularly badly. You know, I mean, there isn't a lot of humor to be found in the situation, frankly.
Well, come on, Steve. We had a naked senator shooting off a gun in the middle of the night. That's funny.
But this is a domestic violence kind of situation that's very, very serious. We have a big problem with that in this state, generally with the laws being applied in a way that protects women from men who would do them harm. And here you've got an elected official, you know, allegedly and sort of admitting that that he punched, you know, his ex-wife and then went out in the street shooting down after her car. I mean, there's no question that Kim Worthy has got to make, I think, a real statement here. She's got to prosecute this very meticulously and make sure that whatever punishment the law allows for this, if he's convicted, is handed out.
All right, so violence against women, also gun violence, and again, just shooting down the street. 10 shots is what police are reporting that happened. Nolan, and you alluded to his record in the Senate on gun rights.
Well, yeah, I mean, he voted against the Castle Doctrine, which greatly expanded your right to use deadly force to protect your home and property. And apparently he's going to invoke the Castle Doctrine in his defense, which is a bit hypocritical. I mean, everything about this situation's a hypocrite, but we know Virgil Smith's kind of a hothead.
A very hothead, and I think other people in the legislature will tell you about what kind of hothead he is. I've heard stories over the years about him rushing into other people's offices, yelling and screaming. You know, he is somebody who's very volatile.
All right, well,
we had a little bit of a run-in.
We were first-hand witnesses to Virgil at some point.
If you've had this experience with him,
you don't want to meet Virgil late night in a bar when he's had too
Evidently
many.
not.
Okay, should voters have known? All right, we have to look also at a record, but should you hold a guy's record against him? 2000 minor in possession, 2004 operating vehicle while impaired. His license was revoked, but given back to him in
you know, one of the tragedies here is that in the last election, voters had a choice between Virgil Smith and Rashida Tlaib, who is one of the model legislators, certainly out of Detroit and for the whole state, and they rejected Tlaib very soundly for Virgil, who, you know, who, let's be honest, is the beneficiary of a strong political name in the city. And you look at sort of his record of behavior, he has been a more decent legislator than I think a lot of people expected was going to be possible. But his personal behavior goes back years in terms of misbehaving, and voters were willing to overlook that when they had a better choice. And I think that's one of the real shames of this situation too.
All right, so he cannot be removed unless there is a 2/3 majority in the state Senate. Right now, a spokesperson for the Senate Majority Leader says Smith should give serious consideration as to whether he can serve his constituents right now. Nolan, should he be stepping down from his position?
Well, of course, but I think that's, in this situation, you'll often see the office becomes a bargaining chip for a plea agreement and a lighter sentence. It's something he can give up as part of his punishment and perhaps avoid some jail time or prison time, or at least cut that back. I would be surprised if he steps down before he gets that opportunity. It was similar in the Kwame Kilpatrick case until it just became overwhelming. He was using that office sort of as part of his leverage.
But here I'm not sure that's appropriate. This is not a...
I'm saying it's appropriate.
Yeah.
I'm saying that's like
and I would be surprised if Kim Worley would go for that. This is not a white-collar crime or malfeasance of office. This is a violent crime involving domestic violence and involving a weapon that you know, he's discharging out in the street at 1 in the morning. Anybody could have been killed by what he did.
But of course, but no prior record. I think this is, if he weren't a state senator, this would be a case that would get pled down, get bargained for.
In
and
Wayne
I'm not
County.
sure he should, in Wayne County, but I'm not sure he should be treated all that much differently than everybody
one
else.
question I have also is whether this will be tried in Wayne County, because his dad used to be the chief judge. He has relationships with all of the judges on the bench. Is there any judge in Wayne County who could hear this and not feel like there was some sort of conflict? And if it gets removed to someplace like Oakland or Macomb, he's cooked, because this kind of thing is met with much more...
very few cases get tried in Wayne County. I mean, this will be, the horse trading will start, the bargaining will start, and giving us no prior record, and the fact that, you know, losing your Senate seat is pretty stiff punishment to begin with. I would expect there'll be some plea involving that and community service, and this will go away.
Well, I don't think it's that stiff a punishment. Again, he's been charged.
This is a violent crime.
It's a very violent crime.
Super
I
violent
think that's
crime.
only the tip of the iceberg for him. Let me ask this before we end this topic. The Senate only has basically removal power. There's nothing in between here, Stephen. Should there be something that if you are accused of felony, or that you have to take a 30-day step back period? I mean, should anything be changed, or is it fine the way it is in terms of if the legislator does something like this or is accused something like this? It's either an all or nothing.
Yeah, I don't think you should have to do anything if you're accused of a crime. That shouldn't forfeit your seat. At the same time, I think you ought to have the decency to say, I'm going to get out of the way here and deal with this personal problem, or whatever you want to call it, away from the spectacle of the public glare, and at a time when it'll distract you from your duties representing the people. I think that's an expectation we ought to have of all public officials, not so much a law we ought to have to pass to sort of force them to do.
Last word on this, Nolan.
And again, I would not expect to see him sitting back on the job in the Senate ever again. I think you know, it's very unlikely. So I think it's just a matter of playing this out.
All right. Now